Okay, section 11.3 is on quadrilaterals and just learning the different properties that apply to each of the quadrilaterals. So we have different shapes of quadrilaterals that we're looking. First one's parallelograms. We're also going to be looking at rhombi and rectangles, and then squares. Those are all parallelograms. So some of them have specific rules that apply to them. So for example, rhombi, you have these 3 rules that are specific to rhombi, but also the parallelogram rules apply. Rectangles have 2 rules that are specific to rectangles, but the parallelogram rules apply. And then the square is a combination of all the rules. So for squares, all the rules that apply to parallelograms, rhombi, and rectangles apply. So we're also going to be looking at non-parallelograms, which are kites and trapezoids. And so these are the notes that we already took in class. We went over each of these shapes. But for this video, I'm only going to work out the examples that are with parallelograms, so we're just going to be focusing on this part of the notes for this video. So I gave you 4 examples. Example 1, I already labeled my picture with the information that's given. So for example 1, AB is 5x minus 8. DC is 2x plus 10. I already labeled that. And then this is just kind of to help you see which information you're going to be looking at from each shape. So here, because they're giving me expressions that represent side lengths, I'm going to circle that the information that's given is about sides. The property that I'm looking for is going to have to talk about sides. So when you look in your notes, I have 2 things that talk about sides. I know opposite sides are parallel, and I know opposite sides are congruent. And this is what's going to help me set up my equation. In my example, the sides that are given to me are opposite, so then I know by this property that they're congruent, which means they're equal. So then I'm going to write that property right here. Opposite sides are congruent. And so that means I'm going to take those 2 expressions and put them equal to each other to be able to solve the problem. So I'm going to have 5x minus 8 equals 2x plus 10. So then from here, you are going to get x by itself. So I'm going to get x on one side only, so I'm going to subtract 2 x's from the right side so they can cancel out. I'm going to move them over to the left side. And I'm going to subtract the x value. So 5x's minus 2x's, it's 3x's, carry down the minus 8, and then on the right side I have the 10 left over. Okay, x is on the left side, so I'm going to get rid of the numbers on the left side, but first I have to get rid of the constant. So opposite of subtraction is addition. I'm going to add 8 on both sides. Carry down my 3x. 10 plus 8 on the right side gives me 18. And last step, get rid of the 3. So opposite of multiplication is division. I'm going to divide by 3 on both sides. And so I have x equals 6. So now they're asking me to find AB. AB is this blue side length up here. So I'm going to replace the x right here with the 6 that I got. So I have 5 times 6 minus 8. So 5 times 6 is 30, minus 8 is 22. So you should be already used to solving equations. Really what you're learning in this section is just how to identify what property you're using to be able to solve the problem. So example 2 is still parallelogram, I'm sorry. And again, I already labeled my information. They gave me the measurement of angle ABC, which is this blue angle that I marked, and they gave me the measurement of BCD, which is the pink angle that I marked. And so now the information that's given to me is talking about angles. And so when I look at my properties, I have to look at this properties that talk about angles. So I have two angles. I have opposite angles, which are congruent, and I have consecutive angles, which are supplementary. So these two angles, since they're on the same side, they're both on the right side, they're next to each other, those are considered consecutive angles. And so I'm going to use a property that talks about consecutive angles are supplementary. Okay, so they're supplementary, and so supplementary means that they add up to 180. So to be able to solve this problem, I have to add those two angles and put it equal to 180. So I'm going to add my two angles. I have 12x plus 42 and 8x plus 26. That should equal 180 because they're supplementary. I'm going to solve that equation. So before you start trying to cancel numbers, you have to combine like terms. So I have 12x's here and 8x's here. That's a total of 20x's. So I have 20x. And then I have 42 plus 26. Those are my constants. So that's 68. And so now I have x on one side only. Now I can start getting x by itself. So first thing I want to do is I want to subtract that 68 from both sides. And I have 20x equals 112 because 180 minus 68 gives me 112. And so now to get rid of the 20, all I do is divide by 20. And I have x equals 112 divided by 20 is 5.6. So my x is 5.6. And so for ABC, that's going to be the blue angle. I'm going to plug it into this expression. So I have 12 times 5.6 plus 42. And that gives me 109.2 degrees. Okay, so for the last two examples, I'm not going to work them out because like I said, we already used to solving equations. We're just focusing on how to label our pictures and look at our notes to determine what property it is that we're using. So example 3. So they gave me ABC, which is this blue angle ABC, and then they gave me ABC, which is the pink angle ABC, and that's the pink one. And so this time again they're giving me angles. So when I look in my notes, I have to find the property that talks about angles. So here's my notes. Here are my notes. Again, I have opposite angles, I have consecutive angles. I have to determine which one I'm working with. So this one's pink and blue angle, they're across from each other in opposite corners. So those are opposite angles. And so my property tells me opposite angles are congruent. That means they're equal. So for this one, opposite angles are congruent is my property, and then I will put them equal to each other. So to solve this problem, I will do 10x plus 17 equals 4x plus 80. And then you will solve that and get your answer. I'm not going to solve it. And then for example 4, they give me from a to x, 5x minus 32. And then from x to c, this little piece right here, is x minus 4. And so now, those lines inside of the shape, those are considered diagonals. And so now I'm working with diagonals. And so when I look at my rules, my properties for parallelograms, I have to find whatever talks about diagonals. Diagonals bisect each other. That means that they're cut into two equal parts. So that means that 5x minus 2 minus 32 should equal x minus 4, and that would allow you to solve your problem. So again, those are diagonals because they're inside of the shape. They're the lines connecting one corner to the opposite corner. And I know diagonals bisect each other, so that would be the property: diagonals bisect each other. We're not solving the examples in the notes again because we already know how to solve equations, but in your assignment you are required to solve the problems entirely.